Hey, welcome back to the channel and welcome to part three of the Civic EG rebuild, which this project is coming along really nicely. Here I am installing the K-Tune heater hoses, which these work great for a K-swap. One side of the hose is a little bit larger for the K-series motor side, and then the other side is slightly smaller for the OE heater box ports. If you do want to keep your actual heater in the car and not just have them for flowing coolant, you will need to splice in the little heater control box, which it actually came with 6 hose clamps total, so it was very easy. Went with some Lucas break-in oil for the initial run, and for the trans, we went with some Royal Purple Synchro Max, and no, that hose clamped onto the bottle did not work. I ended up having to run to Harbor Freight and get a pump, which that worked much better. So moving on to the fuel system, it is really pretty much plug and play. The only slightly difficult part was that line right there, which is the feed line that slides over the hard line and kind of clamps onto it. But 20, 30 seconds of fighting it and it slid over. My only complaint about the fuel pressure regulator is actually it did not come with a bracket. Actually, two complaints. It didn't come with a bracket for one. K-Tune charges like another 25 bucks for a bracket. And number two, the bracket is so short that you can only mount it straight. I really wanted to mount it at an angle, kind of on the corner of the strut tower right there, where you could easily see the gauge after you pop the hood. But there's only one way that it fits, which is exactly how it is there. I threw a little filter on the hard line that did run to the charcoal canister since that was going to be left open. So moving on to the shifter, I went with the Hybrid Racing no cut shifter. As you know, I did go ahead and buy the bushing kit from them since I decided to reuse the OE or the RSX base shifter cables. I actually did buy some billet shifter cables, which I just did not like the way they felt or fit the shifter. So I went with the using the OE cables. After installing the new, Hybrid Racing bushings, they fit super nice on the shifter, nice and tight, so I knew there would be no sloppiness to it whatsoever. So, unfortunately, I either forgot to record when I bolted the shifter assembly into the car, or I just could not find it. But either way, it was really easy. There's two holes, two small holes you have to drill, and then you use two of the factory locations from the shifter mounting point. But it was really easy, and then it's got this little cover up plate that goes on the bottom to keep all the debris out of it. But that shifter assembly was a great investment. If you don't want to chop up your transmission tunnel, if you don't mind chopping up your transmission tunnel, you could save 150 bucks. The other side of the cable assembly is held onto the transmission by 3 bolts and 2 cotter pins that actually hold the cables to the assembly. Moving on to the radiator. If you look at those hoses and you know anything about K swapping a K20, you'll know that that right side hose, which is the upper hose, is the wrong one. I actually bought the K24 radiator relocation kit and hose kit from K-Tune, but thankfully the only difference is that upper hose. So I bought the aftermarket, the PQY brand Amazon upper K20 hose, which was a perfect fit. So to relocate the radiator to the driver's side, and you only have to do this if you're keeping air conditioning in the car. You do have to chop off the 2 bottom brackets on the radiator, but it was three spot welds on each side, and they come off pretty easily. A little bit of rattle can Tahitian green pearl, and it's like it never happened. As much as I hate chopping up any of the metal on this car, I did have to get the cutting wheel out and just do a tiny bit of clearancing for the radiator. I cleaned it up with the flapper disc and then hit it with some more of that rattle can touch up, and it looked great. So next up, I started the AC kit installation kind of at the same time of doing the radiator, since everything is directly side by side. I had to make sure everything fit together, which I was really glad I did. As you'll see a little bit later, I ran into a hardline issue that I had to resolve. There was only a couple of issues with the kit. It was pretty much plug and play, but as you'll see, the left side bracket was direct bolt on. Took me 2 seconds. The right side bracket, I'm not sure if it was a result of the condenser being an aftermarket condenser. It was Spectra brand. It wasn't like an OE exact brand. So I don't know if maybe there was just a little bit of different specs on it. But the right side bracket wasn't even close to fitting. Like when you went to slide it under, it just would not fit, and you would think, "Oh, that's just the bracket bent down a little bit," but the actual distance in between the round portion there and the bracket there, it wasn't even close, so I had to heat it up and, smash down that round portion there, but ultimately, I did get it on. See, at that point, I had already kinda smashed it enough to where it fit, it just needed a tiny little bit more persuasion. So here is the first test fit of the radiator and the condenser side by side, and I do have the condenser there reversed. That's why it's leaning a little bit, but once you flip it around, it does straighten it out. And you'll see the area on the side of the condenser. I had to trim out right there about an inch of material to make that hard line fit in between the radiator and the condenser. I don't know how else maybe the OE condenser would not have this issue, but also this hard line, if you see there, it's about 7 inches off of where it's supposed to meet the dryer. So I had to do quite a bit of bending to get that to fit, but in the end, we did get it to fit. Okay, moving on to my least favorite topic, which is wiring or electrical altogether. I kind of put this off as long as I could, but once I started doing the AC, I kind of had to start tackling it. I was not sure that I was going to be able to fit not only the original EG harness plugs that you're no longer using, but the 3 K series plugs all through this same grommet hole. But somehow, if you spread out the harness and do it kind of one plug at a time, it really does go fit easily through there. And if you unwrap the base of the grommet where the harness attaches, take the tape off, you can kind of rewrap it with all three harnesses together, and it gives it a nice clean look. I forgot to take pictures of it, or I just could not find pictures of it completed before I put the fuse box back in. But once the battery's out again, I will take some pictures of the harness showing it completed. I ran the primary O2 sensor wire through an unused grommet on the passenger side firewall there. And then was time to remove the factory ECU, which is down on the passenger footwell area. So I'm not going to get into the specifics on the wiring or what plugs into what, because if you're doing this project, you should definitely follow Hondata's instructions and not mine. But the K series ECU, I mean, it fits directly where the factory ECU went, and there's only two bolt locations on it, but they both line up perfectly. So that ECU is secure. All the wire tucks away really easily. As you can see, I bolted the OBD2 port using a couple of self tapper screws right on the inside of the glove box, and then there's the connection cable for the ECU. I did eventually go ahead and install the Momo steering wheel. I used NRG short hub and an NRG quick release. I did all new LEDs in the dash, as you can see, they're nice and bright. And then it was on to the exhaust system, which was pretty much the last step before time to fire this thing up. As you can see by the cobwebs, this was a pretty fast paced project in my garage. But yeah, as you can see, also I ordered the wrong size exhaust hangers. I was not aware that exhaust hangers came in two different sizes, but they do, and clearly the grease was not needed this time. But I did go ahead and hang the system, and then just jumped online and ordered the correct hangers for it. Couple of days later, these came in, and let me just say they were a lot harder to install than the ones that didn't fit. But ultimately, we got it done. And then here you can see I had about a solid 10 inches or so that we needed to cut off on the exhaust system side. And then we also had to trim a little bit on the header side on the little V band collector that it came with. So, actually, as a temporary solution, because I did not want to start it for the first time on open headers, I really wanted it running through the system. I bought a butt connector to join the system to the header, which is right there. The brand is Pipes Performance, PYPES, and that thing was just, I mean, if you weren't worried about having a flex pipe, it is an amazing solution to join two systems. Really, really solid. It's only temporary because I do have a bellows style flex pipe to have welded in, but again, this was a great solution. So now I'm going to shut my mouth and move on to the moment everyone wants, which is this motor turning over for the first time. That was with coils and injectors disconnected just to get the oil flowing. That was with the injectors connected. So now I'm connecting the coils, and we're going to see if this thing starts. Okay. I killed it right there because the intake tube actually wasn't even clamped onto the throttle body. It was just sitting there in place. That's why my buddy was kind of holding it there. So I just killed it once the idle started surging up to like 3,500. And on that topic, I do still have a idle surge issue, but I'm pretty confident the tuner will get that figured out. So regardless, I'm really happy with how this thing turned out, and really want to thank everyone who watched the videos and dropped a like and subscribed, shared it. Motivates me to get a new project going quickly. But thanks again, and let's end it with some very lovely choppy idle sounds and a couple of short pulls on the highway. Thanks so much. Take care. I know I told you to not get on that chair. Come on, you sticky feet. Sweet boy. There you go in. All right, come on.